Brett, talk about what's going on at CNN.
Well, I just want to say, I'm a huge proponent of the media. Like, I think the media is so important, and it's so important that we have a strong media, which is why I also think it's so important to call it out when you see it shift, because the media throughout history, not the U.S. media, but all across the world, has given rise to dictatorships when they found it advantageous. And so that's what I want to make sure that we're avoiding here. I want to make sure that we're being appropriately critical, because if you have a CNN that is all of a sudden both siding democracy and fascism, you're all of a sudden in a bad place. And once CNN becomes like a Fox News light, then we're really in a really, really, really bad place. And so what happened was this guy became a member of the board and Discovery, and there was all these mergers that
John
happened.
Malone,
this guy, John
supporter.
Malone, literally a Trump supporter. I mean, this is somebody who actually donated to Donald Trump's Save America PAC. Let me repeat that. John Malone, who is pulling the strings at CNN, donated to Donald Trump's Save America PAC. All those crazy emails that you see people post begging for donations, all that stuff, that's all from Donald Trump's Save America PAC. John Malone was a big donor to that. And John Malone views his North Star in how journalism should be conducted. His North Star is Fox News. He has said this in numerous interviews. He has said that Fox News is a model for how news should be. That's how he wants it to be covered. And he said, and he used this term, which I think is always a big giveaway as to where somebody is on the political spectrum. He said that the news is too leftist. Whenever they use that term, the leftist, you don't want to be too leftist. You know immediately where they're coming from. It's like when somebody says, "Oh, the Democrat run cities." There are like certain ways people phrase things that let you know, "Oh, I know what side you're on." By the way,
it's a dog whistle of a sort.
It's the perfect way to describe it. And so one of the first things that happens is, Zucker is basically ousted. Zucker has to leave because he gets into trouble for the affair that he had with another CNN staffer. And they bring in this guy, Chris Licht. Now, Chris Licht's background to me is interesting because he helped start the Morning Joe show. He was an executive producer on Colbert. So you would think, oh, this is a guy who probably aligns with my beliefs and things. But then he takes a bizarre turn. One of the first things he does at CNN is he goes on an apology tour across Capitol Hill. And this is well documented. He goes on an apology tour to apologize to Republicans, to go into Republicans, hold meetings with top Republicans, MAGA Republicans, and say, hey, I know we've lost your trust over these past few years. How can we gain it back? How can we gain back your trust? Mm-hmm. And that to me is so dangerous, because you shouldn't try to be gaining the trust of anybody. You should be trying to gain the trust of Republicans or Democrats. You should be trying to gain the trust of what is the truth. I am going to put my barometer towards the truth, and that's what I will deliver for the people. But instead, it was, how can we provide more balance in this? How can we help you guys out? They're never going to get these Republicans on their side, but what they're doing now is they are trying to position themselves in the middle more. And the problem is, when the middle is the middle between democracy and fascism, you are then shifting to the right towards fascism and authoritarianism. And that's the danger that we find ourselves in now. So now you start to see the criticism, like a President Biden speech, going after the minutia of the speech, the little teeny details around the speech, and not actually speaking about the true threats of democracy that he was railing against, and instead calling his speech divisive, when, like we said, Donald Trump the next day, 2 days later, proved the thesis of President Biden's speech. You have these reporters on Twitter bringing up old stories about Hunter Biden, just like randomly bringing up old stories about Hunter Biden. Just a weird impulse for a new CNN reporter to start bringing up old stories of Hunter Biden when they have no relevance at the moment. I mean, I'm always out of the position with stuff like that. Like, let the DOJ do their thing. If he did something wrong, I want to see accountability. Sure, I don't care, but I don't understand why they would be bringing these stories up right now. You have the John Harwood situation, one of the pro-democracy anchors who I really like at the network, along with people like Jim Acosta. I like Don Lemon. I mean, there are people at the network I think do a really good job. John Harwood went on a speech and he basically said he basically gave away the game during his speech. Actually, he said, you know what, as news anchors, we are not inclined to take sides, so to speak, but we have to acknowledge that Donald Trump is a demagogue, and he is giving the speech of a demagogue, and he is speaking like a demagogue and acting like a demagogue. And it's our responsibility as media, even though that may make it seem like we're being biased, to call him out. We have to call him out as media. That's what's so important. That day, he announces like an hour or two after making that statement that he's no longer with CNN. Now, John Harwood had another 2 years left on his CNN contract, so one could deduce that John Harwood was fired for making those pro-democracy statements. And then you start seeing these other articles on the CNN website about wokeness, why wokeness comes to Middle Earth, why some say diverse casting ruins the new Lord of the Rings series. And this is just
bizarre
like
bizarre
title. And this is just like the cherry on top of the fascist CNN Sunday here. What you got is an article that's basically just replaced the word wokeness with diverse casting, or replace the word wokeness.
You don't have to, Brett. Here's the thing about the title. You don't have to replace it because it literally says it. Normally wokeness is code, but in this one it goes,
so right.
When wokeness comes to Middle Earth, why some say diverse casting ruins the new Lord of the Ring series. Now, this type of journalist where it goes, why some say, I mean, whoever is saying,
lose your credentials.
Whoever is saying that diverse casting ruins a made-up fantasy world. The made-up fantasy Middle Earth is all white necessarily. I mean, who are the people saying you don't know the authenticity of Middle Earth? All white people. How dare you?
Tell you.
You are hurting the integrity of Middle Earth's whiteness. Who are these people?
Let me tell you who, because CNN based this entire story around somebody named Brandon Morse. It's the first name, I think it's the first words used in the article. Brandon Morse. Who is Brandon Morse? Who is the person who is saying that this is a problem? Brandon Morse is the deputy managing editor of redstate.com and the host of Red State Live. They are a far right MAGA Republican website. That is who Some Say is. And here's the problem with Some Say journalism. You could some say anything. Like you could make whatever your agenda is. You could say some say cigarettes are healthy for human beings. And then you find a bunch of Twitter threads of people saying, yeah, I think, the benefits surely outweigh the whatever. And you can make a story about that. You can make a some say story about anything you want.
100%.
And I think it's the worst form of journalism in general that's out there. And this now to push this far right, anti-diverse, anti-woke. I don't even know it's just bizarre. It's just bizarre for them to even publish this piece.
Some say Ben is the favorite brother.
but Jordy, to go and again spread this silly wokeness thing on a platform like that, frankly, just demeans the intellect of the platform. It's interesting. I saw a Twitter thread, and what the Twitter thread was saying was Chris Licht was making this decision because there's a concept in the media known as CPMs, or cost per millis. And when it comes to news, the 18 to 49 demographic doesn't apply because most consumers of news are more in a demographic of about 45 and older. And so Chris Licht is trying to copy a Fox model, which finds that they were able to attract older individuals and thus bring up their cost per milli. It's the cost they charge to advertisers. Cost per milli is 1,000. The amount of dollars per 1,000 viewers that you charge to advertisers who advertise on your network, so that somehow by appealing to radical right individuals, it would increase your CPM. And immediately when I saw that Twitter thread, Brett, I said, I thought it was an interesting Twitter thread, but the thesis is completely wrong, and it's completely contradicted by our audience here on MeidasTouch. We have a very diverse audience and an audience of all ages, but I find that our audience actually is a significant portion actually tends to be 45 years and older.
Yeah, that audience that CNN's trying to reach by their hard right shift.
And what people like about the MeidasTouch network is simply that we're not both siding the issues, that we're detailed oriented, that we're well researched, that we bring on guests and we challenge guests where and when appropriate. We don't give a microphone to fascists. And I actually find that the individuals who are in the demographic that they purport CNN are trying to find, that they're coming to MeidasTouch simply because we're speaking the truth unapologetically. And when people aren't fighting for the truth, and you go and you see this ping pong journalism of, well, here's one side, here's the other side, it is very frustrating to watch that experience where the other side of fascism just goes unchallenged, and it's in these soundbite forms, which is what we've combated here. So, so I think that CNN is going to try to copy Fox is the wrong decision. And did you see Trump's statement though, too? One of Trump's social posts is saying, CNN, let's partner together. Let's work together.
Yeah.
He says Fox is looking like they're a little too pro-Democrat, which he's just saying that to build. He doesn't mean that. What he's trying to do there is to bait CNN to try to do what they're doing anyway, and to try to let Fox know, I'm going to partner with these people. But when you're CNN, when Trump is saying, I want to partner with you in a post on his failing social media company, that's not good company to be in.
I won't read the whole thing, but basically he says, if CNN ever went conservative, they would be an absolute goldmine, and I would help them do so. This November is Rovember. MeidasTouch just released its brand new collection of Rovember t-shirts and pins to let the country know what's at stake this upcoming midterm election. Go to store.meidastouch.com to grab yours. That's store.meidastouch.com.